Michael Mann is Distinguished Professor of Atmospheric Science at Penn State University. His most recent book is The New Climate War, The Fight to Take Back Our Planet. Michael, welcome back. It's good to have you with us.
Thanks. It's good to be with you.
Okay, so many of the speeches from the world leaders on this day, on this first day rather, focused on future generations, our children, their children. Here's the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson.
If we fail, they will not forgive us. They will know that Glasgow was the historic turning point when history failed to turn. They will judge us with bitterness and with a resentment that eclipses any of the climate activists of today. And they will be right.
Yeah, what happens, what comes out of this conference is obviously key, but overall, would you say the tone and the language at least has shifted to reflect the urgency of the crisis?
I would say so. I frankly found that remarkable language to hear from Boris Johnson, who would have guessed a couple years ago that he would be so strident in the way that he characterizes the climate crisis. And I think you're exactly right. I think the youth climate movement, youth climate protesters like Greta Thunberg, and literally millions of children around the world who've demonstrated on the streets to raise awareness about climate change, it has shifted the conversation. And we see that in the tone that has been set. Now what we have to see is if the actions measure up with the words.
On day one, India announced net zero carbon emissions by 2070. That came as a bit of a surprise because just a few days ago, India's environment minister dismissed the idea of net zero. Critics, though, say 50 years is too much of a long timeline. Is this a case, though, of don't let the great be the enemy of the good, because at least India's made the announcement?
I think that's right. And I also think that there's some haggling going on here. There's politics going on here. Who would have guessed? It's essential that the developed world, that the major industrial economies of the world, those of us who created this problem in the first place, need to provide funding and resources to the developing world, to the global south, so that they can afford to develop their economies in a way that doesn't mortgage the planet. We need them to skip the fossil fuel stage of their economy. We need them to leapfrog directly to clean energy, to renewable energy. And to do that, they're going to need financing and they're going to need assistance. And I think that India and other countries right now in these negotiations are trying to ensure that the wealthiest countries of the world do pony up. We've heard the number $100 billion a year in assistance is probably necessary if that's going to happen, if we're going to help these developing economies skip the fossil fuel stage. And so I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, Modi was pushing for $1 trillion overall from those wealthier nations, which seems about right. Unless there's, though, a dramatic cut in carbon emissions, we're heading for an increase of close to 3 degrees Celsius, 2.7 degrees, which would mean a rise in sea levels that would leave downtown Durban in South Africa underwater. Buckingham Palace could see water basically up to its first floor, if you look at this, what possible scenario is. And the famous Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles, that would be actually totally underwater and submerged and gone. But many smaller island nations are facing an almost total loss of land. For them, this climate summit, the decisions made here, will most likely determine if they continue to exist. Here's the Prime Minister of Barbados. Listen to this.
2 degrees, yes, SG, is a death sentence for the people of Antigua and Barbuda, for the people of the Maldives, for the people of Dominica and Fiji, for the people of Kenya and Mozambique, and yes, for the people of Samoa and Barbados. We do not want that dreaded death sentence.
There seems to be an attitude among some world leaders that, when it comes to 1.5 degrees, near enough is good enough. But clearly for other nations, it's all about their existence. And anything over 1.5 degrees really means they won't be there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we talk about, what constitutes dangerous climate change. Is it 1.5 degrees Celsius? Is it 2 degrees Celsius? We've warmed the planet 1.2 degrees Celsius at this point. We've got a few tenths to go before we hit 1.5. But if you're Puerto Rico, if you're the western states, California, the western US, if you're Australia, if you're any of these locations around the world that have been subject to the devastating impact of climate change in the form of unprecedented extreme weather events, heat waves, wildfires, floods, superstorms, dangerous climate change has arrived. And so at this point, it's a matter of how bad we're willing to let it get. And for these low-lying island nations, any additional warming literally submerges them.
In terms of real action, what are you looking for from these countries, from these world leaders, which would essentially make this COP26 a success?
Yeah, we need a commitment to end any new funding of fossil fuel infrastructure. The International Energy Agency, by no means a cheerleader for the renewable energy industry. They've been quite conservative when it comes to their projections of renewable energy. And yet they've said that there can be no new fossil fuel infrastructure if we are to hold the warming of the planet below that dangerous 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so that means that when you have countries like the United States, the EU, the UK, making these bold pledges to lower carbon emissions, by 50% or more within this decade, well, that's fine. Those are the commitments that we need. But if you're still funding new oil and gas pipelines and you're still investing in overseas coal, that's fundamentally inconsistent with this pledge.
Michael, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.